Right, hello, welcome back. And as you can see, slightly different today. We've got two other people with us here. Following on from the video I did last week, where we talked about listening to test pressings and masters and acetates of Jennifer Crook's new LP, The Broken Road Back Home, I'm delighted to welcome Jennifer Crook and producer Stuart Bruce.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So apart from anything else, they bought a lovely tote bag and
something
fantastic.
in it.
Yes. Of course, we know this is a first pressing. And here we have the beautiful LP, which I haven't played yet because they've only just got here. But it's got a really nice inner sleeve with all the lyrics and credits. What's that say? Oh, Jason
Jason at Loud Mastering.
That's
Oh, Jason at Loud Mastering.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's, he actually did the vinyl cut for us down in Taunton. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I've heard one of his cuts, obviously, because I've heard the acetate and the test pressing.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
So the first batch have already been posted, so some people might already have their LP with them.
Nice. So this officially was released last weekend, is it?
On the 22nd, which
Yeah.
was Record Store Day.
Okay, yep.
And we celebrated that release last Sunday.
Nice.
With a launch gig. So
Nice.
yeah, it's definitely out there now.
Excellent. Well, I mean, people seem to like the first video I did where we were talking about it. So as I say, I thought, well, let's get you back in as you're not don't live a million miles away. And,
well, first of all, thank you very much for that. That was great.
It's my pleasure, and just always interesting to talk to artists and producers and just it's all of us people who collect records, love music, listen to music. I mean, there's if it wasn't for the musicians and the producers and the rest of it, we wouldn't have any. So. It's always interesting.
We have something to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, can you sort of tell me a little bit about your career and how you've got to where we're at?
I can. How long have you got? So this is my 5th album.
Right.
I've been writing songs and been a musician kind of all my life. So. But this was quite a different, in terms of the process and approach, quite a different album for me. So I've worked with different people before. So like my 2nd album, that was produced by Boo Hewardine, who you might know from his work with Eddie Reed, a fantastic songwriter.
He was in the Bible as well.
He was in the Bible. That's right.
Great band.
Yeah, and has worked with Chris Difford a lot and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I recorded that one up in Glasgow with him, but the approach was more me saying I'd like you to produce my album and him saying yes, and then okay, here's 25 songs, what do you think? And then we got different people into the studio to add to the songs on that album, including Eddie Reader on backing vocals, which was very special for me because I was a big fan of Fairground Attraction when I was younger. Then my next album so I had an acoustic trio.
Okay.
So I'd written songs that kind of worked for the live act, and I did that one at Real World Studios with an amazing guy called Stephen W. Taylor,
right?
Who has worked with loads of people, including Kate Bush. At the time, he was mixing a Kate Bush album, but again, that was it was like we'd been doing the songs live, so it was a question of having them really beautifully recorded and a few additions. So I did another album after that, but with this one, it was in some ways, I think, more of a collaboration with Stuart in that the songs were. It was really coming from. I found the songs. I mean, I'd written them. And then both of us thinking about, and I had a vision for how I wanted them to be, but really both of us thinking about, okay, what does the song want? What instruments want to be? Would really express this best.
It's kind of that, but also there was you wanted to make a very distinct change, didn't you?
Yes.
At this point, for this record, you wanted to step away a little bit from the purely acoustic world that you've been working in before.
Yeah.
Right.
And you wanted to go back to something that, in a way, you'd wanted to do for a very long time, but because of the nature of the way musical careers tend to go, sometimes you get sidetracked from your original idea, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, this is much more like what I had in mind when I was a very young songwriter. Given the things I was listening to, the things I was influenced by, it's really, for me, it's really important because it's like going back to my beginnings, and it's it was like I did actually kind of. I did do a recording and I had a band, an electric band, years ago, but I never put that record out.
Right.
And then I realised that touring with a band was quite complicated. And so I kind of went more down the acoustic folk route. So this was really, okay, I've always wanted to do this. Let's do it.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, this to me is, it's clearly a folk album. In the wider sense of the word folk, but it's an electric folk album, and it's a sort of it's a rocking kind of bluesy folk album, but it's also a bit proggy. Which
I loved that you said that on the video.
Well, it kind of is, and I was thinking about prog folk, and it's like, well, actually. I mean, Joni Mitchell's kind of, some of her sort of sound painting-y kind of, she's sort of, if you think of, well, I suppose even Fairport Convention, you could sort of say it's a bit proggy, and it's obviously largely or loosely, depending on the time period, folk.
Yes.
And you've got Pentangle, a kind of like jazzy, proggy folk.
I had a big phase listening to that actually when I was back at uni at that point. But I mean, you mentioned Joni Mitchell, which is somebody we both really love listening to, and there's certainly a few aspects on the record of kind of. There's one song, Strange Red Sun, where I was writing it and the way the chords were going, I kind of thought, I think this is feeling a little bit Joni. But it's not a conscious thing because you just absorb all this stuff over the years. And sometimes it comes out in different ways. And certainly the way you approached, there's a song called Battle Scars, and Stuart does this amazing, beautiful bass line. It's very melodic. On the fretless. And you were kind of thinking a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about fretless bass, one of the albums that I always think of is Giro.
Yeah, absolutely.
That story. I mean, obviously, trust me, I am not comparing myself to
no.
But there's something in that tone and that texture, and also in the 80s, I used to work a lot with Pino Palladino, who's another very famous fretless player. Well, certainly in the 80s, he was very famous as a fretless player. Obviously, these days he's a fretted player playing with John Mayer, and it's amazing what he does now. He's an astonishing bass player. But and so there's a kind of double tracking element to that, that sound, that tone, that sort of character that you get from that, and so that's definitely something which I would sort of say is influenced by in my playing.
I mean that funny enough, that's listening to the album. I mean, Broken Road obviously is sort of it's kind of like the title track, but it's it was actually, for me, it was when we get into Battle Scars and you know, I'm much more of a, you know, I listen to bands like Yes and you know, Genesis and things like that, you know, then you're not someone who's you know, a great poetry fan if you're listening to bands like that where the words, it's about the sound of the words rather than you know, kind of thing. So it's always been for me, it's always been sounds that turn me on more than pure poetry. It's not to say I don't appreciate poetry. You know,
I think
the sound of Battle Scars, it's like, oh, yeah, I like that sound. And it was at that point, I was like, well, okay, this isn't, it's not just another folk album, or even it's not even just another folk rock album. This is interesting and luscious and, you know, great sound. So that something you worked out between you, or you saw before, or is it something that just came?
I think. I mean, I always have. So when I was writing these songs originally, and some of them I wrote quite a while ago, you know, I would have a production in my mind.
Yeah, right.
And you know, I've always played lots of instruments, and always have the fuller picture, the arrangements, kind of in my mind as well, and been influenced by all different types of music. I think last time we met, I said, you know, so it's kind of like from heavy metal to classical. I mean, all of it. At some point, I've had a little bit of an obsession with something, and so, and that's what I think when we. You know, the songs were pretty much fully filmed, and I kind of played them to you, or I demoed them very, very roughly, and we listened to them.
Yeah, there were a few of them which you were kind of in the process of finishing.
Yeah.
But by the time the songs came to me, they're written, done.
Yeah.
And then it's really that search, isn't it? Knowing that you had this kind of idea that you wanted to do an electric band album. And knowing what some of the kind of sonic textures that you wanted to work with were, we then formulated a plan between the two of us as to how we were going to approach it.
But it was also, it does actually also go back to the lyrics, because I know, you know, you were saying you don't particularly hone in on the lyrics, but I had chosen songs that had, I feel had a kind of epicness about, like I'm metaphorically talking about quite big things. You know, I'm not talking about making cups of tea. You know, it's sort of mythological kind of. I mean, you can interpret it in however you want, whether that's personal or just in the world. So it needed to have a real range, a real. You know, from quite, you know, sensitivity to big sounds.
Yeah, it goes from the intimate to the expansive.
That was the thing.
Because that's really what the song asks for. Because it's like when you're producing, and I mean we produce this together. What you're looking for as a producer is really you should be listening to the song, and if you listen closely enough, the song will tell you what it wants.
Right.
That's really how we were approaching it.
For us, then really it was about finding the musicians that we felt would also be able to not only interpret the vision, but also actually understand and add to it.
But I think what was lovely for me was in that first initial, okay, here's the song, what do we want to do about it? It was like we were both on the same page. So Stuart would go, I can really hear, you know, a bit of Hammond here, and I'd be like, you know, or I would have a suggestion, and I think that's why it feels more collaborative, you know, because we were both kind of hearing those things. But I think it was the choice of musicians that was the important thing, because if you're choosing the right people, you can let them do their thing. You know, you're not telling them what to do.
There's very, very, very little, because we knew that Rob Bryan, who's the drummer. I mean, you played with Rob
years ago.
Years ago. Rob's been my go-to studio drummer for years now.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
And he's a very good friend of both of ours as well. And so Rob was the obvious choice because he is one of the most musical drummers.
Yeah.
He's the most tuned into songs that I've ever heard. I mean, he's astonishing.
Right,
His sensitivity to the material that he's playing is incredible.
I mean, we do things live where I really pull back on a phrase and he's right there with me and it's just brilliant. Yeah.
Because he listens.
Right.
Really
It's funny, I mean, I have met Rob on a couple of occasions and he's a bit of a vinyl nut, I believe, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to become a good musician, get into vinyl.
Yeah. So there's Rob, and then there's
Joe was recommended to us.
Joe Coombs was recommended to you by a couple of people. Wasn't he?
Right,
Yeah.
Who's the guitar player?
Right. Yeah.
And he's phenomenal. I mean, he's phenomenal. He's very much the kind of youngest person in the band.
Okay.
By a long chalk. I discovered recently that he's actually a year younger than my oldest daughter. But his depth of knowledge about the kind of the sound of his instrument, the way he approaches it. He has a very, very meticulous approach to sound, texture, but also the sensitivity of his playing.
Yeah.
Means that at any moment you can sort of say to him, I mean, we would give him the most broad, general kind of descriptions of what we thought was maybe the right idea. It was like, you know, well, here we want it to be a little bit more rhythmic and a little bit more up front, and here we'd like a little bit more space. Yeah. And he just taps away on the pedal board, sets a few things up, plays the part to you, and you go, yeah, like that. You know? So they brought their creativity into the project because we knew that if we just gave them head to just do whatever they wanted to do, pretty much most of that would be right for what it was that we were looking for. It's picking the right players is so important. Right. And then we had a keyboard player as well, which was Dan Moore. Okay, yeah. Who's a keyboard player from Bristol, who really does specialise a lot in organ, you know, Hammond. Because I mean, if you want Hammond, you really need someone that really understands the instrument. It's a really complex instrument to get right. Yeah. And again, you know, just said, you know, minimal instruction, and just let him go.
And of course, I mean, this was happening mostly live because we tracked pretty much all the songs live. Right, you know, and I may have overdubbed some vocals, not all of them. So that's actually happening in the studio at the time, and I think that's, you know, a lot of the things I was listening to when I was younger and the things that we love from way back, you know, were recorded that way, and that's, I think, perhaps why it works very well on vinyl.
It's coming back to this vinyl thing, isn't it? It's like those albums that we fell in love with, and I mean, obviously I fell in love with a lot of stuff in the early 70s, which I was hearing straight away when it got released. You heard it later.
A little bit later.
But
I probably heard it on release as well.
Yes. But you know, when I was listening to things like, you know, you think about people like Hendrix, for example. I mean, everyone talks about Hendrix being like studio trickery. Those tracks would have been cut pretty much live, and then a few overdubs stuck on top of them. Right. Yeah. You go back to records, you know, early Neil Young things, Joni Mitchell, all of that stuff. That's a group of people in a room. Crosby, Stills and Nash. It's a group of people in a room playing together. And there's no click tracks, there's none of that stuff. It's all done by feel, and it's done by people experiencing each other's playing and reacting
and energy.
No, so I mean, that's a lot of it is done that way, isn't it? And there's a few tracks. Broken Road, the title track, actually is the only track that we did to click. Okay. And the reason for that was that Jen wanted me to play the rhythm guitar on it. Right. And you'd only just finished writing the song, hadn't you? I mean, you just finished the song about a week before, I think. and we just went, okay, let's put down a basic idea for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that grew. You know, I put the guitars down, I put a bass line down, and I had a drum machine.
We had an idea for
the basic groove.
Yeah.
And then you stuck a vocal on it, and then we played it to the band.
Yeah.
And Rob immediately went, all right, okay, drum groove, yeah, because I knew he'd sophisticate that.
Yes, sure.
And Joe just came up with his guitar parts very, very, very quickly, and so we got them to play live to that. So even though we'd done our bits kind of separately initially and kind of built something up as a sort of starting point, the guys then play live to that.
Yeah.
3 of them together, so it's drums, bass, and drums, guitar, and keyboards play to what we'd already done.
Right. Yeah.
So,
but we should talk about like where words don't go from that point of view as
that's
well.
very true. Yeah.
Which,
explain the story of the song.
Well, that was a song that I had. It was in my head, and because I've got millions of notebooks. And I do voice memos of ideas and stuff
I can vouch for the fact there are a lot.
so I so I had it in my head. So I thought, and I was searching through voice memos, notebooks, and I just couldn't find it anywhere. And I thought, okay, if it's stuck in my head for that long, because it was like 10 years ago, I think I started writing.
Okay.
You know, then there must be something about it. And it was the first time that I ever recorded with electric guitar.
Okay.
With you playing the electric guitar?
With me, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
With me playing electric guitar.
Right.
I don't consider myself an electric guitar player, but the sound really worked with the song, and so I did that as a demo essentially, wasn't it? Initially. And then we were going to do that with the band live in the studio.
But I mean, what Jen did was we set up in our studio, and she played. It's a live take,
Right.
so it's a complete live take. It's just her singing and playing the electric guitar. I then immediately stuck a bass on it,
Right.
just as a guide idea.
Yeah.
I had an idea in my head. I wanted to get it down quickly, so I recorded it quite quickly. And then I did a little mix of it, listened to it. That became the current version of the song. That was like the demo.
Yeah.
And when we came to do the album, by then I think partly because we got used to it, but also it's a great performance from Jen.
I just remember saying I don't want to.
And I just said I don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose that performance. But of course, it moves.
It's all over the place, like rhythmically.
Yeah, rhythmically speaking, it speeds, it slows.
Right, yeah,
of course, you listen to it and you go, "That's beautiful. I love it."
Yeah.
You know? And so I thought, well, okay, wouldn't it be great to try and get the band to play to that?
So there, you got the band playing.
Yeah.
Sort of.
So I created a click track.
Yeah. Right.
That sat perfectly in the tempo, which was really complicated. And actually, in creating the click track, I'm kind of looking at it and going, "Wow, I had no idea the tempo changed this much from place to place." And wow, it really slows down there, you know, but it sounds right.
Yeah.
Because there's such great players,
Yeah.
we then got them in, set them up in the studio, and it's the 3 of them.
Yeah.
So it's drums, guitar, and organ again.
Yeah.
And they played a live take to Jen's live take. The only difference is so the whole thing is live, but it's 2 years apart.
Right. Okay.
Which I love.
Yeah.
It's one performance layered on top of another performance,
Yeah.
but 2 years apart, and it's magical because of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
It's funny. I was listening to Steely Dan. I can't remember the track off the top of my head now. I was listening to Steely Dan in the week with some friends, and I can't buy a thrill. I can't remember which track it was now, but it's a similar thing. It's quite subtle, but they change the speed that they're playing, kind of throughout the. It's not. Oh, they just picked it up a bit there, and you just did they do something? Did they do? And it's like. I mean, you'd almost question whether your turntable's working, but of course it's all faulty or something. But actually, of course, the pitch isn't changing. So yeah, the turntable's clearly right. They're actually just all very subtly just.
Together.
And it's really kind of it kind of takes you on this. It's another element. It's another dimension to the journey, or the the road you're on, the journey, and it's the more you kind of and the subtle variations in that are kind of.
And that's why
that really make things more. As you get pulled into music more and more and more, these little subtleties. They just.
But that's where the emotion is, isn't it? As well. I mean, a lot of the time, that's exactly the thing. It's how you feel it, and you interpret as. I mean, when we play live, everyone in the band is focused on what Jen is doing.
Yeah.
Because depending on where you are at that moment with that song, you might interpret it slightly differently in terms of the timing and the way. So we're following what she's doing because we know that, by creating that atmosphere each time, following each time, we create something very individual each time we play it.
And that sort of adds a tension as well, because everybody's got to be ready.
Yeah. But it's great.
Do you want pain?
But that's a great thing, because it's like, that's something that you hear on the record.
Yeah.
And that is, this idea that everything should be at a I mean, sure, it works for certain genres of music, it's fantastic. But when you get into, musicians playing and interpreting, that freedom is essential. And it used to be, of course, everything was like that.
Yes.
And I mean, even if you go back to things like, I mean, the one I always makes me laugh whenever I listen to it is I'm a big Isley Brothers fan.
Okay,
You go back to a track like Summer Breeze.
Fantastic,
which, it has that beautiful intro, and then by the time it gets to the end, there's the massive guitar solo and it's hammering away.
Yeah.
Go to the end of the track and then go back to the beginning, and it's like someone put the brakes on.
Yes.
It's almost twice as fast by the time it gets but it naturally ramps through because it works for the piece of music. That's all it is. It's like if you interpret it the right way and it works for the piece of music, then that's how it should be. And this is a timestamp. That's what's great about a record, is it's a moment in time. It's like when we play these live, you'll definitely recognise them. The arrangements are pretty much the same. The kind of parts that we play are pretty much the same. But every time you hear one of these songs live, you'll get a slightly different interpretation. And that's beautiful.
I can think of a couple we did on Sunday where I was just so enjoying the kind of how the band was sort of improvising and stuff. I just left. I didn't come in for a bit, where we just kind of. So we changed the arrangement on the spot for a couple of them, and that's part of the joy of it. I mean, that's Yeah,
it's not exclusive to jazz, that kind of thing,
Yeah, no, right. Yeah. It's not exclusive to jazz and yes.
There is that.
I saw a record store day last week. It's like, there's another version of Yes songs. It's a triple album of a concert. No, I don't need that as well.
Yes. Try and keep your hand in your pocket. Okay.
Yeah.
But what I love about, and obviously the people that follow you here, and what you were talking about, it being a trip, it being like you take a journey. When you put a vinyl record on and you sit down, you can do that, and that's as a songwriter, that's an artist, that's my intention. It's like, join me on this thing, and then you get the most out of it, and all the details and subtleties and things that you would just miss if
But I think, listening to music, you get an immediate kind of hook from the first listen, but it's. You go back and and decent music that's well put together. Let's say there's always more to you can go years and years and years on and just hear new things and new little see how that's playing against that. And tweaked it from that angle before now and looking at things with new perspectives, and it is just
and that, I mean, for me, that feeling mostly exists in music that is played and performed in the studio in kind of the way that we did this. You know, obviously in my life, my working life, I've experienced a huge number of changes in the way that music is performed in the studio.
Yes.
And I've been involved in lots of different genres within that.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I always come back to that thing of if I'm not hearing musicians playing at least a part of a role in that, and I'm not hearing the character in them, then it's not something that's going to live with me for very long.
No.
You know, I can be really fascinated by a pop record that's perfect and pristine and has been done in a certain way. I can, on an engineering level, I can go, wow, that's really clever. But it's gone for me within a week or two, and I'll be moving on to something else. But I still listen to Gryner.
Yeah, it's the records you come back to, isn't it?
The stuff I come back to is the stuff that's got that humanity in that, and that's so, it's got soul, real soul.
And I was going to say, I love that you made that Bob Dylan reference.
Well, I mean, you couldn't not, could you? This is Aftermath, last track, side one.
It was
so how did that come about?
Well,
Tell me about
it was interesting because when I was writing Aftermath, which came out kind of all in one go, it was kind of a bit of an outburst, and I kind of thought when I was writing it, there's something a bit Dylan-esque about it in terms of the rhyming scheme and in terms of the fact it just keeps rolling on into the next verse and stuff. Wasn't conscious of it, but I just, in the back of my mind, I thought it might be.
I had the same feeling as soon as I heard it.
I suppose you did,
Because I mean, you're a Dylan fan. I'm a Dylan nut.
Okay.
I mean, I'm Dylan obsessive.
Yeah, I mean,
well, that's...
I'm a Dylan nut too, I'd say.
Are you? Right, cool. Well, so...
The biggest, you can see back there, the Dylan on the record shelves, And he extends down onto the next shelf. So there's more Dylan records than any other one artist.
Fantastic.
Like that.
Brilliant. So we're in the right place. But there's people have commented on your bass line. So when I was writing the song and I had the at the end of the verse, I was kind of like, I can really hear like a bass line that goes down, and I couldn't do it on the guitar. Right. So I was like, can you do that on the bass?
So it's that kind of dun 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 bum 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 bum. It's that.
I couldn't do it on the guitar and still play the chord I was trying to do. Anyway,
And so it's kind of it. When you hear that as well, I mean, for me, the thing that always reminds me of, and this is we were talking about this in the car coming down, weren't we? It always makes me think of Stuck Inside a Mobile with the Memphis Blues again. The line is nothing like it. But there's that turnaround at the end of each section of Stuck Inside a Mobile where it goes bang, 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 and then back into the groove. And it for some reason, it always reminds me of that.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't know where it came from. I felt like it was probably a Bob Dylan song, but it kind of all just gets.
It's definitely a Bob Dylan song.
Yeah.
But for me, it was kind of like which one? Because, like you say, it's 100% the essence of Bob Dylan. But it's like it's like if you're making a cocktail, we'll have a little bit of Stuck Inside of Memphis, a little bit of a little bit of that.
But it's funny because it wasn't intentional, it was only in reflection.
We didn't think about it at the time. Where we did think about Bob Dylan was I played you We Can Make It Home, which is the second to last track on the album. And that made you think of which song was it? But there was a production idea that you had for that. You went, like on Bob Dylan's...
I can't remember which track it was now, because I can think of quite a few, but I think it could have been anything from Blonde. It could have been something from Blonde on Blonde. It could have been even something from one of the later albums as well. But it just had that kind of vibe to it. It just feels like it's the way it rolls.
And you put that idea in, didn't you? And then we scrapped it. So
Well, it's good. We put that idea in, we scrapped it, and then that gave us the idea for the way the track ended up being.
Right.
Which is another thing that happens sometimes as well.
Yeah.
But there is one very obvious, when you're talking Dylan, there is one very obvious Dylan moment, right, in the whole album, which is, there's a song called Brand New Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when Brand New Day gets to a verse where it just breaks down in the middle, yeah. And we'd done that section and it was great, we really loved it, but it just felt like it just needs a little bit more movement.
I wanted something different to happen there, yeah.
And so I got a farfisa organ, and just went that, fours through it.
Right, yeah.
Which is the first track on Time Out of Mind.
Okay.
And I know you did a thing, I know you did a video on Time Out of Mind, which is a great, I love that record, because to me that was like Dylan's big return when it came out, you know. And the very, very first thing that you hear on that album is that farfisa organ going, that I'm walking through streets that are dead. And I just, so that's the one, there's a little
and when you think about the chord change, I think was something I suggested, and that you put that in, that made the whole, in the end, that, okay, it's just, one verse, or half a verse even, isn't it? But,
it's a tiny little moment, in terms of the album, but I mean, it's like all those little things, but that's,
that's
when
detail.
when you're older and you've got that whole kind of
so much
back catalogue of music that you've heard through the years, of course all these little ideas come to you occasionally. You can't help but add them in because it's all that's what happens in
life, isn't it?
Yes. And I know some, a friend also commented on some. You mentioned Fairport Convention, didn't you, at one point?
Oh yeah, I mean, I just I don't think any of your records sounds like Fairport Convention. That's. I mean, I like Fairport. I've seen them many times live, but they're not. And it's funny. I mean,
but it might be the Sandy Denny thing. I loved Sandy Denny, right? So when I was young, I used to sing some of her songs and things. But and it may be also that I'm, quite English in as well, because I try not. Well, I don't. I just sing in my natural voice. I don't put on an American thing or anything, which some people do. But that's.
I mean, with Fairport, it's funny because I think my favourite Fairport album, which is probably quite unusual, but it's I think it's Full House,
right?
Which is the one that doesn't have a female vocalist on it. I think it's the first one that didn't have a female vocalist on, if I'm not mistaken. There's Sandy left. I think it's the one after. Oh, my mind's gone a bit blank now. But yeah, Full House. They didn't have a female vocalist, but you've just got Richard Thompson, and you've got Thompson and Swarbrick there.
Yeah.
And it's just the way they play off each other. It's just it is folk rock, I suppose, but it's it's rock music in a way.
Richard Thompson's great.
I mean, Richard Thompson is unbelievable, but so Swarbrick. I mean, it's
absolutely,
I think I've seen them both live from front row in small auditoriums where they're sitting maybe 10 feet in front of you and just bloody hell, this is amazing. Kind of thing. But it's my kind of love of Fairport. I mean, Fairport and Pentangle are two folk rock bands. I mean, that just absolutely. Well, I mean, Jethro Tull. I mean, where do you genres are very strange things to kind of pigeonhole people into.
It is.
Tull is amazing.
I mean, that's
amazing band.
That for me was when I was kind of, I guess, late teens, early 20s. That kind of when I discovered a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I wonder if things at that time somehow go in maybe even more than they do later on, if you know what I mean, into your kind of, I suppose, the whole subconscious.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think this album, it has got a sound, but that sound, but it is, like say the use of the you know, pretty much every track I think has got Hammond on it, isn't it? It's never in your face. And you mentioned that to get the best out of Hammond, you've got to have just someone who knows how to play a Hammond properly, rather than just a keyboardist who has a go on one. And it just so I mean, I don't think Fairport or Pentangle or Tull, maybe Tull, I don't know, but you don't think of Hammond organs when you think of them. You don't think of a Hammond organ when you think of Joni.
Not particularly, no.
I guess it would be Hammond on early Bob.
The band.
Well, I say early Bob, not acoustic Bob, but.
Yeah, I mean, there's Hammond on. I mean, the classic, obviously, the big classic with Dylan is like a Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
There's loads of it in later records, loads of it.
Yeah.
And of course, he played with the band.
Right.
Yeah.
They were his backing band, and I mean, obviously Garth Hudson.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Although that's not a Hammond, that's actually a very, very big farfisa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, Dan also plays Wurlitzer as well on this, doesn't he?
Plays some Whirly on it as well.
And we hadn't. So there's the other Dan. We've had two Dans.
There's Dan and
involved
Dan.
in this
Dan,
record.
yes.
Who lives just down the road from here.
I have met on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, we're hoping to see him for a cup of tea a bit later, actually. But, we needed someone for the live thing, and we were doing for the live recording and filming that we were doing at Real World, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did at Real World Studios with the Northern Cowboys. So we were just gonna film and record. What was it? 5 songs? Yeah.
This is sorry to interrupt. This is on YouTube. You've got.
Yes.
I've seen this.
Yeah.
I will put a link. Put a link down below, but if we can, we'll put a link up there. I think.
Excellent.
Just above my head.
That's where it will go. Somewhere up there. There'll be a link.
It's also, if you sign up to my mailing list, it's a free download as well.
Right.
Yeah. There's an EP been made.
Little bribe there.
Yeah.
They'll be down below as well.
But so we went and did the 5 songs, and our keyboard player at the time just couldn't make it.
Right.
He just couldn't do the date.
Yeah.
And so there was this kind of mad panic, wasn't there?
Yeah, a few days before.
5 days before. And when Daan Temmink, Dan's the guy, it's called Dan, and Dan went, I can do that. And I mean, bless him, obviously he learned everything in a couple of days, but then he is a musical genius.
Yeah.
And came in and did the show with us.
Yeah.
And in rehearsal, he started to do this kind of funny little rippling organ line at the beginning of Stranger at Sun, isn't it? And we said to him, that's great, let's keep that in for the live show, that's brilliant.
Right, yeah.
And so
that's my favourite proggy bit of the album.
Well, that's it. And he did that, and so when we actually recorded it at Real World, he did it there.
Yeah.
And I just do a little thing with the bass and some harmonics, and then Joe comes in with the normal intro that was the thing that had originally been recorded on the track.
That's the beginning of the track.
Yeah.
And when we listened back to it later, when I was mixing it, the live show, this is the Real World thing, Jen sort of went, I really love that bit at the front. She said, can we put that on the album? And because the album wasn't quite finished at that point, so we just nicked a bit off there and put it on the front of the actual album master. So that's why it's there as well.
Okay, yeah.
And actually the other very cheeky thing that did happen there was we didn't have any keyboards on Aftermath at that point.
Right.
And Dan had played these great keyboard parts on Aftermath. And then after we did the Real World show, he was writing a film soundtrack and he couldn't get back to the studio. So I actually took the keyboard parts off the live version.
It's giving all the secrets away.
And did a bit of kind of edit manipulation and put them onto the album. So actually that's kind of 2 live performances joined together as well. It's a bit cheeky though. It's a little bit naughty. I did tell him I was doing it. But it's kind of, so we've actually got 2 Dans playing keyboards.
Right.
Dan.
Just to confuse.
Yes.
No, it's much easier if the keyboard player's always called Dan.
Well, I suppose it is, isn't it? Yeah. Dan and Dan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
And there's a bit of progginess, I think, on Build a Shelter. Have you got, you've got that far in there?
Oh God, yeah.
That's one that's...
Track 4 intro. Okay, yes, Jams. Yeah.
The Jams.
And tell me about the duet, is it? Would you call it with it's track 2, side 2, isn't it? Brand New Day.
Yes.
So how did that come about? With was that always written as a duet?
No, it wasn't actually. It was. In fact, we recorded it, didn't we? It was recorded.
Yeah.
And then this was sort of during lockdown times, you know, and I just had this thought that a musician friend of ours from Canada, Brent Jones, who's a brilliant singer and musician, would be a great person to join me on that track and as a duet. And so basically we chopped out my bits. He sent over his parts, which I thought was great, but also because he said, oh, do you want some harmonies on it as well? So he asked a bunch of friends if they would like to contribute some harmony. We went, yeah, that'd be great, because we always wanted harmonies on that. We were going to get a bit of a choir going or something, but of course it was lockdown and we couldn't do that kind of thing.
Yeah, really difficult to get that together.
So Jay Atwill, Elle Hermansen, and Gryner, who I don't know if you know her. She's particularly famous for work she did with David Bowie, but she's got a brand new album out just now. Brilliant songwriter, musician.
Great songwriter.
So check that out.
Check her out too.
And she did the really lovely high, those high harmonies, like and so Brent sent all this stuff over, and we were like, wow, and Stuart mixed it in about 5 minutes. It was like, it just really fell together, didn't it?
It was gorgeous, it's just a great moment. It was like getting gifts sent from across the Atlantic. But it was gifts from across the Atlantic.
And it also was just lovely to do that kind of collaboration and have that connection at that time. You know, it was in Canada, I think it was in the middle of the ice and the snow, and everyone stuck in, and, you know, we were stuck in trying to get this album finished. So, and he's actually over at the moment because he sang. We did it live for real on Sunday.
First time we've ever been able to do it with him.
Oh right, of course, yes.
In real life and everything. So that was great. Nice.
And actually, I'm going into the real world with him
next weekend,
not this weekend, but next weekend, to mix some of his stuff. Which is going to be great fun.
And we might be playing a little bit on it, but maybe. We don't know yet. Anyway.
You better do that before I mix it.
Yeah,
that's probably a good idea. But it tends to be the right way around.
Yeah.
Cool. So I mean, I think we should probably get back to it if I can persuade you to come back for a repeat visit. Stuart's mixing and producing life credits is quite something. I think that's probably warrants another video. So.
I think we should definitely. In fact, because you mentioned it to me before, I've actually got some ideas. I've a few things I want to bring down as well and just like talk about and things. So there would be a bit of a laugh.
Nice one.
It's a very eclectic mix of stuff that's gone on in the last 42 years.
42 years.
You wouldn't believe looking this young, would you? Really? But, you know.
One of the second single I ever bought, Stuart recorded it. So.
Yeah.
You know.
Was that the big one?
It was.
That was the big one.
Yeah. We don't mention the
You're not allowed to mention the title in the house anymore.
Oh, are you?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, we will.
Yes.
Next time, but we're not telling you now.
No.
Because you'll have to come back.
Excellent. Anyway, look, I think on that note, it's probably a good time to end, and so I'd love to just thank everyone for watching. If you're still watching, Well done, and thank you Jennifer Crook and Stuart Bruce for coming down.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for the record,
And, yeah.
and thank you for the music. Hey.
Hey.
It's a pleasure.
Okay. Cheerio now. Bye.
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 Bye bye then.